Hey there, welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and today I've got something a little different for you, something I think you're going to enjoy, maybe even get a little nervous about, in a good way. Because today, we're doing a real B1 listening test, right here, right now, together. No boring textbook voice, no robot reading sentences at you. Just me, a cup of coffee that's already going cold because I keep forgetting about it, and 5 short stories that are going to test your ears, your brain, and honestly, your patience a little bit too. So here's the big question for today. Can you actually pass a B1 English listening test? Not, do you think you can? Not, have you passed one before? But right now, today, with the English you have in your head at this exact moment. Some of you are going to breeze through this like it's nothing. Some of you are going to get to question 3 and go, wait, what did she just say? And that's completely fine. That's actually the whole point. Because a real listening test doesn't care if you're relaxed or nervous. It just plays the audio once, maybe twice, and then it waits. And I'm going to do the same thing to you today, except I promise I'll be a little kinder about it than your average exam. Before we jump in, let me tell you quickly what B1 actually means, just so we're all starting from the same place. B1 is what people call an intermediate level. It's not beginner anymore. You're past that. You can already understand simple conversations. You can talk about your day, your job, your family without too much trouble. But B1 also isn't advanced. You still get confused sometimes when people speak fast, or when they use 2 different tenses in the same sentence, or when a conversation suddenly changes topic and you're left thinking, wait, are we still talking about the same thing? If that sounds like you, congratulations, you're exactly the right level for today's episode. And if you're not sure what your level is at all, don't worry about labels. Just listen, try your best, and see how it feels. That's really the only test that matters. Here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to tell you 5 short stories. Some of them are conversations between 2 people. Some of them are just me telling you what happened to someone, like a little story. After each one, I'm going to ask you a few questions, just like a real listening exam would. You won't see the questions written down, you're going to hear them, which is actually harder. So stay sharp. I'll give you a few seconds of thinking time after each question, and I want you to actually answer out loud if you can, even if you're just talking to yourself in your kitchen or on the bus with your headphones in. Trust me, saying the answer out loud, even quietly, helps your brain so much more than just thinking it. After the questions, I'll give you the answers and explain anything tricky. Any word that might have confused you, any little trap I put in there on purpose. Yes, I put traps in there on purpose. That's what a good listening test does. It doesn't just test if you understood the words, it tests if you understood the meaning. There's a difference, and we'll talk about that as we go. One more thing before we start. I'm going to read each story at a natural speed, the way people actually talk, not slow and careful like a language app. Because here's the truth, nobody tells you enough. Real English is messy. People trail off mid-sentence, they use filler words, they change their mind halfway through what they're saying. If you only practice with slow, clean, perfect English, you're going to walk out into the real world and feel completely lost the first time a stranger asks you for directions. So today, we train with real speed, real rhythm, real English. Ready? Take a breath. Get comfortable, and let's begin with our first story. Our first story is about a woman named Maya who is trying to plan a birthday party for her younger brother. Listen carefully, because there are some numbers and some plans in here that you'll need to remember. Maya sat at her kitchen table with her phone in one hand and a half-eaten sandwich in the other, trying to plan her brother Leo's birthday party. Leo was turning 25, and Maya wanted to make it special, because last year she'd been away for work and missed it completely, and she still felt a little guilty about that. She called her friend Nora to help her decide on a place. "What about that new restaurant on Baker Street?" Nora asked. "The one with the rooftop?" Maya thought about it for a second. "It's nice, but it's really expensive, and Leo hates fancy places anyway. He'd probably feel more comfortable somewhere casual." "Okay, what about just doing it at your place then? You have that big backyard," Nora suggested. Maya liked that idea much better. "Actually, yeah, that could work. I could set up some lights, order pizza, maybe get a small cake from that bakery near the park." "Perfect," said Nora. "What time were you thinking?" "I was thinking around 7 in the evening, so people can come straight after work. But I need to text everyone by Wednesday at the latest, because the party is on Saturday, and I want people to actually plan for it." "Makes sense. How many people are you inviting?" Maya counted quickly in her head. "Around 15, maybe 18, if a few more people say yes. Oh, and Nora, one more thing. Please don't tell Leo anything. I want it to be a surprise." Nora laughed. "My lips are sealed. Don't worry." "Okay. Pause right there. Here come your questions for story number 1. Question 1. Why did Maya feel a little guilty about this year's party? Take a moment. Think about it. Maybe even say your answer out loud. Question 2. Where did they finally decide to have the party? And why did Maya choose that place instead of the restaurant? Think it through. Question 3. What day did Maya need to send the invitations by, and why did she choose that day specifically? And question 4. What did Maya ask Nora to keep secret? All right, take a few more seconds if you need them. Really think about the details, not just the general idea. Let's go through the answers together now. For question 1, Maya felt guilty because last year she was away for work, and she missed her brother's birthday completely. So this year, she wanted to make it up to him and do something special. If you said something like, she felt bad because she wasn't there last year, that's exactly right. Well done. For question 2, they decided to have the party at Maya's place, in her backyard, instead of the restaurant, because the restaurant was too expensive, and also because Leo doesn't really like fancy places. He's more of a casual, relaxed kind of person. This is actually a really common thing in listening tests. They give you 2 options and then eliminate one, so you have to catch both pieces of information, not just the final answer. For question 3, Maya needed to send the invitations by Wednesday because the party itself was happening on Saturday, and she wanted to give people enough time to actually plan and show up. And for question 4, obviously, she asked Nora not to tell Leo anything because she wanted the whole thing to be a surprise. If you got 3 or 4 of those right, that's a great start. If you missed 1 or 2, don't worry at all. This is exactly why we practice, so let's keep going. Now, let's move to our second story. And this one has a little more emotion in it. So listen not just for facts, but for how the person is feeling. This is about a man named Daniel who is talking to his manager about a problem at work. Daniel knocked on his manager's office door, feeling his heart beat a little faster than usual. His manager, a woman named Grace, looked up from her computer and smiled. "Daniel, come in. Sit down. What's going on?" Daniel sat down and took a breath before he spoke. "Grace, I wanted to talk to you about the project deadline. I know it's supposed to be finished by Friday, but honestly, I don't think we're going to make it." Grace's smile faded a little, but she stayed calm. "Okay, tell me what's happening." "Well, 2 people on my team have been out sick this week, and the client changed some of the requirements halfway through, which meant we had to redo a big part of the work we'd already finished. I've been staying late every night trying to catch up, but I just don't think 3 more days is enough time." Grace leaned back in her chair, thinking. "I appreciate you being honest with me about this instead of just quietly panicking until Friday. How much more time do you think you actually need?" "If I'm being realistic, I'd say until the following Wednesday. That gives us a proper buffer in case anything else goes wrong." Grace nodded slowly. "All right. Let me call the client this afternoon and see if we can push it. I can't promise anything, but I think they'll understand, especially since the delay is partly because of the changes they asked for." Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Thank you, Grace. I really appreciate that, and I promise, whatever happens, we're not going to let the quality drop just because we're stressed about time." Grace smiled again, a real one this time. "I know you won't. That's why I'm not worried." All right, pause here for story number 2. Question 1. Why does Daniel think the team won't finish the project by Friday? There are actually 2 reasons in the story. Try to remember both of them. Question 2. How does Daniel feel when he first walks into Grace's office? Question 3. How much extra time does Daniel ask for? And until which day? And question 4. Why does Grace think the client might actually agree to give them more time? Give yourself a moment on that last one. It's a little bit hidden in the conversation. Let's check your answers. For question 1, there were 2 reasons. 2 of Daniel's team members were sick this week, and the client changed some of the requirements in the middle of the project, which meant they had to redo work they'd already finished. If you only caught one of these, that's completely normal on a first listen. This is why real listening tests often let you hear something twice. For question 2, Daniel feels nervous. His heart is beating faster than usual. That's the clue the story gives us right at the start. For question 3, Daniel asks for extra time until the following Wednesday, which is a few extra days past the original Friday deadline. And for question 4, this is the trickier one, Grace thinks the client might agree, because the delay is partly the client's own fault, since they were the ones who changed the requirements halfway through. That's a really important detail because it explains why Grace feels somewhat confident, not just hopeful. Good listening isn't only about catching what people say, it's about understanding why they say it. What's behind their words? That's a skill that takes time to build, so be patient with yourself. Let's move on to story number 3, and this time we're switching things up a little. Instead of a conversation between 2 people, I'm going to tell you about something that happened to someone, like a short personal story. Listen for the order of events this time, because things happen in a specific sequence, and the questions are going to test whether you followed that sequence correctly. This is the story of a young woman named Sophia, who had one of those days that starts badly and somehow keeps getting worse, and then, unexpectedly, gets better. Sophia woke up late because her alarm clock hadn't gone off. She thinks maybe the power went out for a few seconds during the night and reset it. She rushed to get ready, skipped breakfast completely, and ran out the door to catch her bus. But of course, she reached the bus stop just as the bus was pulling away, so she had to wait almost 20 minutes for the next one. By the time she got to work, she was already 40 minutes late. And to make things worse, she realized halfway through the morning that she'd left her laptop charger at home, and her laptop battery was almost dead. She spent her lunch break not eating, but instead walking to a nearby electronics shop to buy a new charger, which cost more money than she wanted to spend. Around 3 in the afternoon, her manager called her into a meeting, and Sophia's stomach dropped. She was sure she was about to get in trouble for being late. But instead, her manager told her that the project she'd been working on for the past 2 months had impressed a major client, and the company wanted to give her a small bonus and move her onto a bigger project with more responsibility. Sophia walked out of that meeting completely stunned. Her whole mood flipped in about 30 seconds. That evening, she treated herself to a nice dinner at her favorite restaurant, thinking about how strange it was that such a terrible morning had somehow turned into one of the best days she'd had in months. Pause here for the questions on Story 3. Question 1. Why was Sophia late for the bus in the first place? Question 2. Put these events in the correct order. Did she buy a new charger before or after she found out about the bus? And did the meeting with her manager happen before or after lunch? Question 3. What did Sophia expect to happen in the meeting, and what actually happened? Question 4. How did Sophia celebrate at the end of the day? Take your time with question 2 especially. Sequencing questions like that are some of the hardest parts of any listening test. So don't rush yourself. Here are the answers. For question 1, Sophia was late because her alarm clock didn't go off, likely because of a short power outage during the night. So she woke up late and had to rush. For question 2, the order was, first she missed the bus and had to wait 20 minutes. Then she got to work late. Then during her lunch break, she went and bought a new charger. And then the meeting with her manager happened around 3 in the afternoon, which is after lunch. If you got the order right, that's genuinely impressive. Sequencing is tough. For question 3, Sophia expected to get in trouble for being late to work. Her stomach dropped because she assumed the meeting was bad news. But instead, her manager told her that her project had impressed a client, and she was getting a bonus and a bigger project. That's a nice example of how listening tests love to set up an expectation and then completely flip it. So always listen for words like but or instead. They usually signal a twist is coming. For question 4, she celebrated by treating herself to dinner at her favorite restaurant that evening. If you caught most of that, you're doing really well, and if not, that's totally fine too. This kind of story with lots of small details is genuinely one of the harder listening formats. All right, let's keep the momentum going with story number 4. This one is a phone conversation, and phone conversations in listening tests are famous for being tricky because you can't see anyone's face or body language, you only have the voice and the words. This is a conversation between a man named Tom and a customer service worker named Claire about a package that never arrived. The phone rings, and Claire answers. "Hello. Thank you for calling Fastline Delivery. This is Claire speaking. How can I help you today?" "Hi, Claire. My name is Tom, and I'm calling because I ordered a package almost 2 weeks ago, and it still hasn't arrived. The website says it was delivered 3 days ago, but I never received anything." "I'm really sorry to hear that, Tom. Let me pull up your order. Can you give me your order number, please?" "Yeah, it's 47219. "Okay, thank you. One moment, please." There's a short pause. "All right, I can see here that the package was marked as delivered on Tuesday afternoon at around 2 o'clock. Is it possible a neighbor accepted it? Or maybe it was left somewhere you haven't checked yet? Like a back door or a mailbox?" "I actually already checked with my neighbors, and nobody saw anything. And I don't have a back door. I live in an apartment, so it would have to be left with the building's front desk. And they told me they never received a package for me either." "I understand. That's frustrating. In that case, I'm going to open an investigation with our delivery team, and I'll also go ahead and offer you 2 options. We can either send you a replacement package, which would take about 5 to 7 business days, or we can give you a full refund, which usually takes 3 to 5 business days to appear back in your account." Tom thought about it for a moment. "Honestly, I'd rather just get my money back at this point. I don't fully trust that a replacement wouldn't have the same problem." "That's completely understandable. I'll process that refund right now. You should see the money back in your account within 5 business days at the latest. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, that's everything. Thank you for your help, Claire." "Of course. And again, I'm really sorry for the trouble. Have a good rest of your day, Tom." Pause here for Story 4's questions. Question 1. What problem is Tom calling about? Question 2. According to the website, when was the package supposedly delivered? Question 3. What 2 options does Claire offer Tom, and which one does he choose? Question 4. How long does Claire say the refund will take to appear in his account? Let's go over the answers together. For question 1, Tom is calling because he ordered a package almost 2 weeks ago. The website says it was delivered, but he never actually received it. For question 2, the website says the package was delivered on Tuesday afternoon, around 2 o'clock. For question 3, Claire offers Tom 2 options: a replacement package, which takes 5 to 7 business days, or a full refund, which takes 3 to 5 business days. Tom chooses the refund because he doesn't trust that a replacement package wouldn't have the exact same delivery problem. And for question 4, Claire says the refund should appear in his account within 5 business days at the latest. Notice something interesting here. There were actually 2 different time periods mentioned, 3 to 5 days in general, and then 5 days at the latest, specifically for Tom's case. Real listening tests love to include small variations like that, similar numbers that are slightly different, just to see if you're really paying attention or just half listening. If that tripped you up, don't feel bad at all. Even native speakers miss details like that sometimes when they're distracted. Now, Our fifth and final story for today. And I want you to really focus for this one because it's a little longer and it has more people involved. This is about a family, the Whitfield family, planning a trip, and there's some disagreement involved, so listen carefully to who wants what. The Whitfield family was sitting around the dinner table, trying to decide where to go for their summer vacation. The father, whose name was Marcus, wanted to go to the mountains because he loved hiking, and he said the family hadn't been camping together in almost 3 years. The mother, Elena, disagreed. She wanted to go somewhere near the ocean instead, because she said the kids needed a real break. Somewhere relaxing, with a beach and a pool. Not more physical activity after a long school year. Their teenage daughter, Priya, didn't care much about the mountains or the beach. Honestly, she just wanted to go somewhere with good internet and interesting food. Ideally, a city she'd never visited before. Their younger son, Milo, who was only 8, wanted to go wherever there was an amusement park. That was really his only requirement. For a while, nobody could agree, and the conversation started getting a little tense. Then Elena had an idea. "What if," she said, "we look for a place that has a little bit of everything? Somewhere near the coast, but close enough to a city, and maybe not too far from some hiking trails either?" Marcus thought about it. "That's actually not a bad idea. What about that coastal town we talked about last year, the one with the old fishing harbor? I remember reading that there are some good trails just outside of it." Priya perked up. "Wait, is that the town with the food market? I saw pictures of that online. It looked amazing." Milo, still focused on his own priority, asked, "Is there an amusement park there?" Elena laughed. "There's a small one about 20 minutes away, I think. We can check." After a bit more discussion, the family agreed. They would spend the first 3 days near the coast and in the town, enjoying the food market and relaxing by the water. And then, the last 2 days, they'd drive out to do some light hiking. Nothing too extreme, just enough for Marcus to feel like they'd done something active together as a family. Milo made everyone promise, multiple times, that they would go to the amusement park at least once during the trip. Everyone agreed, mostly just to make him stop asking. Pause here for our final round of questions. Question 1. What did each family member want from the trip? Try to remember all 4 people and their individual preferences. Question 2. Whose idea was it to find a place with a little bit of everything? Question 3. How did the family finally divide up their trip? How many days for each activity? Question 4. What did Milo make everyone promise? Let's check the final set of answers. For question 1, Marcus wanted to go to the mountains for hiking. Since they hadn't been camping in almost 3 years, Elena wanted somewhere relaxing near the ocean, with a beach and a pool. Priya wanted a city with good internet and interesting food, somewhere new, and Milo just wanted an amusement park. That was his entire wish. For question 2, it was Elena's idea to find a compromise, a place with a little bit of everything for everyone. For question 3, they decided to spend the first 3 days near the coast and in the town, enjoying the food market and relaxing, and the last 2 days doing some light hiking outside the town. And for question 4, Milo made everyone promise, more than once, that they would visit the amusement park at least one time during the trip. If you caught all 4 people's preferences correctly, genuinely, that's an excellent listening score. That question required you to track 4 separate pieces of information at the same time, which is a real, advanced listening skill, even for a B1 test. All right, we're not stopping there today, because I promised you a real test, and a real test doesn't end after 5 stories. It keeps going a little further, right up to the point where your brain starts to feel properly tired. So let's push into a second half, a little bonus round if you want to call it that. 3 more stories. A bit shorter this time, but just as tricky. Maybe even trickier, because your focus is naturally starting to drop by now, and that's exactly when real listening tests like to sneak in their hardest questions. Stay with me. Our 6th story today is about 2 neighbors, an older woman named Dorothy and a younger man named Ethan, who just moved into the apartment next door. Listen for small details about their schedules, because there's a scheduling question coming afterward. Dorothy had lived in the same building for almost 20 years, and she liked to think she knew everyone. But she hadn't yet met the new tenant in apartment 6 until one morning when she found a box left outside her door by mistake. She knocked next door, and a young man opened it, looking a little sleepy. "Oh, hi," he said. "Sorry, I think that box might be mine. The delivery guy probably mixed up the numbers." "No worries at all," Dorothy said, handing it over. "I'm Dorothy, by the way. I live right here." "Ethan," he replied, shaking her hand. "Nice to meet you. Sorry if I've been a little noisy the last few nights. I work late shifts at the hospital, so I've been coming home around 2 in the morning and trying to be quiet. But I'm not always successful." Dorothy laughed. "Honestly, I hadn't even noticed. I sleep like a rock. But thank you for warning me anyway. That's considerate. What do you do at the hospital, if you don't mind me asking?" "I'm a nurse, mostly in the emergency department. It's intense, but I like it." "That sounds exhausting. Well, if you ever need anything, sugar, coffee, someone to water your plants while you're on a long shift, just knock. I'm usually around during the day, except Tuesdays and Thursdays, when I go visit my sister across town." "That's really kind of you. Thank you, Dorothy. I'll definitely remember that, especially the plant thing. I already killed one plant last week just by forgetting it existed." Pause here for story 6. Question 1. Why hadn't Dorothy met Ethan until now, even though she thought she knew everyone in the building? Question 2. What does Ethan do for work, and why has he been coming home late? Question 3. On which days is Dorothy usually not home, and where does she go instead? Question 4. What small joke does Ethan make at the end of the conversation? Here are your answers for story 6. Dorothy hadn't met Ethan yet simply because he was a new tenant. He had just moved into apartment 6, so their paths hadn't crossed before that morning with the delivery box. For question 2, Ethan works as a nurse, mostly in the emergency department at a hospital, and he's been coming home late, around 2 in the morning, because he works late shifts. For question 3, Dorothy is usually not home on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because that's when she visits her sister across town. That's a small detail, but exactly the kind of thing a listening test loves to ask about. Specific days paired with specific reasons. And for question 4, Ethan jokes that he already killed a plant last week just by forgetting it existed. A light, funny way to end the conversation, and honestly, a very relatable one for a lot of us. Let's move to story 7, And this time, we're listening to someone leave a voicemail message, which is a slightly different listening format because there's only one voice, and you don't get any back-and-forth conversation to help you understand. This is a voicemail left by a woman named Ingrid for her friend Oscar. "Hey Oscar, it's Ingrid. Sorry I missed your call earlier. I was actually in a meeting that ran way longer than it was supposed to. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that I talked to the landlord about the apartment we looked at last weekend. The one on Maple Street with the big kitchen. He said it's still available, but he needs an answer by Friday, because apparently there's another couple interested too. I know we said we'd think about it for a week, but honestly, I don't think we have that much time anymore. Can you call me back tonight or tomorrow morning at the latest? I'd really like to make a decision together before someone else takes it, because I actually really loved that place, especially the balcony. Remember how excited I got about the balcony? Anyway, call me when you get this. I'll be free after 7 tonight. Talk soon. Bye." Pause here for Story 7's questions. Question 1. Why couldn't Ingrid answer Oscar's call earlier? Question 2. What news did the landlord give Ingrid about the apartment? Question 3. By when does Ingrid need an answer? And why is there suddenly less time than they expected? Question 4. What part of the apartment did Ingrid seem most excited about? Let's check your answers for Story 7. Ingrid couldn't answer Oscar's call earlier because she was in a meeting that ran much longer than expected. The landlord told her that the apartment on Maple Street is still available, but he needs an answer by Friday. The reason there's suddenly less time is that another couple is also interested in the same apartment, so the landlord can't hold it indefinitely. And the part of the apartment Ingrid seemed most excited about was the balcony. She specifically reminds Oscar how excited she got about it, which is a nice little emotional detail that a good listener should catch. Not just the facts, but the feelings behind them too. And now, our 8th and final story of the day. The real last one this time, I promise. This one's about a young student named Priya. Wait, actually, let's rename her since we already used that name earlier. Let's call her Alina, a university student trying to decide on her class schedule for next semester, talking with her academic advisor, a man named Professor Whitmore. "So," Professor Whitmore said, looking at his screen, "you're currently planning to take 5 classes next semester, is that right?" "Yes," Alina said, "but honestly, I'm having second thoughts. I'm already working part-time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm worried 5 classes plus a job might be too much." "That's a fair concern. Let's look at your options. If you drop one class, which one would you consider dropping?" Alina thought for a moment. "Probably the statistics class. It's not required for my major. I only added it because I thought it might look good, but it's honestly the one I'm dreading the most." "All right, if you drop that one, you'd be left with 4 classes, which is a much more manageable workload, especially with your job. But I do want to mention, if you're planning to apply for graduate school later, having a statistics class on your record can sometimes help, depending on the program." Alina sighed. "I hadn't thought about that. Can I maybe take it next year instead, in a semester when I'm not working as much?" "Absolutely. That's a very reasonable plan. I'll go ahead and update your schedule to 4 classes for next semester. and we can revisit the statistics class next year. Thank you, Professor Whitmore. That actually makes me feel a lot better about everything. Pause here for our final questions of the day. Question 1. How many classes was Alina originally planning to take? Question 2. Why is Alina considering dropping a class? Question 3. Which class does she decide to drop, and why that one specifically? Question 4. What does Professor Whitmore suggest she do instead of dropping the class completely? Let's finish up with the answers. Alina was originally planning to take 5 classes next semester. She's considering dropping one because she's also working part-time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she's worried the combination of 5 classes plus a job would be too much to handle. She decides to drop the statistics class specifically because it isn't required for her major, and it's the class she's dreading the most anyway. And instead of dropping it completely and forgetting about it, Professor Whitmore suggests she simply postpone it. Take it next year instead, during a semester when she isn't working as many hours, which is a smart compromise that solves her immediate problem without closing any doors for her future plans. Before we get to your final overall score, I want to slow down for a second and talk about something that isn't a story or a question, just a quick, honest chat between us. One English learner conversation, even though I know some of you have been speaking English for years already. A lot of people message me asking, "Alex, why is listening so much harder than reading?" And it's a great question, because on paper, spoken English and written English are supposed to be the same language, right? But in reality, they feel like two completely different skills. When you read, the words just sit there, patiently, waiting for you. You can look at a sentence for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, as long as you need. You can look up a word you don't know. You can go back and reread the beginning of a sentence if you got lost in the middle of it. Listening doesn't give you any of that freedom. The words appear once, at the speaker's speed, not yours, and then they're gone, replaced immediately by the next words, whether you were ready or not. That's honestly the entire challenge of listening in one sentence. It's a race against time that reading simply isn't. So what actually helps? A few things, and I want to be honest with you, none of them are magic tricks. They're just consistent habits. First, exposure. Simply spending time listening to real English, podcasts like this one, shows, conversations, even background noise while you cook dinner. All of that trains your ear to recognize the shape and rhythm of the language even before you consciously understand every word. Second, active listening, which is different from just having English playing in the background while you scroll on your phone. Active listening means genuinely trying to catch details, asking yourself questions while you listen, pausing to think, exactly like we did today. And third, and this one surprises people, speak in practice actually improves your listening too. When you practice saying words and phrases yourself, your brain becomes much faster at recognizing those same words when someone else says them, because you already know exactly what they're supposed to sound like from the inside. Okay, I lied a little bit earlier. There's actually one more section before we wrap up completely, and this one is a bit different from anything we've done so far. Instead of a full story, I want to give you 2 shorter listening pieces, and this time, I'm also going to point out some specific vocabulary and phrases as we go, because Part of passing a real B1 listening test isn't just understanding the general story. It's recognizing common phrases that show up again and again in everyday English. The kind of phrases that textbooks sometimes skip over completely. Here's our ninth piece, a short announcement, the kind you might hear at an airport or a train station. Listen carefully, because announcements like this move fast and usually only play once in real life. Attention passengers! The 11:15 train to Riverside has been delayed due to a signal problem further down the line. We now expect this train to depart at approximately 11:45. We apologize for the inconvenience this may cause, and we thank you for your patience. Passengers traveling to Riverside may also consider taking the 11:30 train to Central Station, and then transferring to the connecting service, which will arrive in Riverside at a similar time. Please listen for further updates on Platform 3. Pause here for the questions. Question 1. What caused the delay? Question 2. What was the original departure time, and what is the new expected departure time? Question 3. What alternative option does the announcement give to passengers who don't want to wait? Let's check the answers. The delay was caused by a signal problem further down the line. That's a phrase you'll hear constantly in real transportation announcements, so it's worth remembering. The original departure time was 11:15, and the new expected time is 11:45, so a 30-minute delay in total. As for the alternative, passengers could take the 11:30 train to Central Station instead, and then transfer, meaning change trains, to a connecting service that would still get them to Riverside around a similar time. Now, let's talk vocabulary for a second, because this piece was full of useful phrases. Due to means because of. It's a slightly more formal way of giving a reason, and you'll hear it everywhere in official announcements. We apologize for the inconvenience is basically a fixed phrase. Native speakers barely even think about the individual words anymore. It just means sorry for the trouble this causes you. And transferring simply means changing from one train, bus, or flight to another during your journey. These phrases show up constantly in real life, at airports, on public transport apps, in customer service emails, so recognizing them instantly without having to translate them in your head is a genuinely huge advantage. All right, our 10th and truly final listening piece for today. And I promise, this is the actual last one. This is a short conversation between two co-workers, a woman named Freya and a man named Callum, chatting during a coffee break. Just casual, natural, everyday English. The kind that fills most real conversations you'll actually have with people. "Hey, how was your weekend?" Freya asked, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Honestly, pretty quiet," Callum said. "I mostly just caught up on sleep and watched a few shows. What about you?" "Oh, mine was the opposite of quiet. My sister came to visit with her 2 kids, so the house was basically chaos for 2 straight days." Callum laughed. "How old are they again?" 4 and 7. The 7-year-old is obsessed with dinosaurs right now, so I basically got a 2-hour lecture about the difference between a Tyrannosaurus and a Velociraptor, whether I wanted it or not. That's actually kind of adorable, though. It was, until he started roaring at 3 in the morning because he had a dream about one. Callum nearly spat out his coffee laughing. "No way." "Yes way. I barely slept either night, honestly. I love them, but I was kind of relieved when they left yesterday afternoon." I bet. Well, at least you get a quiet weekend coming up to recover, right? That's the plan, assuming nothing else chaotic happens first. Pause for the final questions of the day. Question 1. How did Freya and Callum each spend their weekends? Question 2. What is Freya's nephew currently obsessed with? Question 3. Why didn't Freya sleep well during the visit? Question 4. How does Freya feel now that her sister and the kids have left? And here are your very last answers. Callum spent his weekend quietly, mostly catching up on sleep and watching shows. Freya's weekend was the opposite, chaotic, because her sister visited with her 2 kids, ages 4 and 7. Freya's nephew, the 7-year-old, is currently obsessed with dinosaurs and gave her a long, unwanted explanation about the difference between a Tyrannosaurus and a Velociraptor. She didn't sleep well because the boy woke up at 3 in the morning roaring, apparently because he'd had a dream about dinosaurs. And finally, Freya feels a little relieved now that they've left, even though she says clearly that she loves them, which is a really human, relatable feeling. Exhausted, but also genuinely happy, the visit happened. Notice something here too. This conversation used almost no complicated vocabulary at all, and yet it still required careful listening, because so much of the meaning came from tone, from small reactions like laughing, from casual expressions like, "No way," and "I bet." That's real spoken English for you. Simple words, but full, layered meaning underneath them. So, how did you do overall on all 10 stories? Maybe you got every single question right? And if that's you, seriously, well done. That's a fantastic sign that your listening skills are strong, possibly even moving past B1 and into B2 territory. Maybe you got most of them right, but missed a few small details here and there. And honestly, that's completely normal. That's exactly where most real B1 learners are, and those small missed details are just showing you exactly what to practice next. And maybe today was genuinely hard for you. Maybe you struggled through most of it. And if that's the case, please don't be discouraged. Not even a little bit. Listening is honestly the hardest skill to build in a new language, harder than speaking, harder than reading, because you can't control the speed. You can't ask the speaker to slow down. You just have to catch what you can and fill in the gaps. The fact that you sat through this entire episode, tried to answer real questions, and pushed through even when it got difficult, that already puts you ahead of most people who just quietly watch videos without ever testing themselves. Let's talk scoring for a second, just so you have something real to measure yourself against, not just a vague feeling of "I did okay" or "I did badly." We had 10 stories today, and most of them had 4 questions each. So if you want a rough number, count up how many questions you answered correctly out of the total. If you're sitting somewhere around 80 to 100%, that's genuinely a strong B1 listening level. And honestly, you might even be creeping into B2 already, especially if you caught the smaller details, like the exact days Dorothy wasn't home, or the specific reason Grace thought the client might agree to more time. Those small details are usually what separates a solid B1 listener from an early B2 listener. If you landed somewhere around 50 to 75%, that's still completely respectable. That's a real, working B1 level. You understood the core of almost every story, even if a few specific numbers or reasons slipped past you. And if you were below 50% today, please, please don't be hard on yourself. That just tells us your listening skill is a little behind your other skills right now, which is incredibly common, especially for learners who spend more time reading and writing than actually listening to real spoken English. The fix for that isn't complicated. It's just more exposure, more episodes like this one, more real conversations, more patience with yourself while your ear catches up to the rest of your brain. I also want to quickly mention some of the specific traps I built into today's stories on purpose, because understanding these tricks will genuinely help you on any listening test you take in the future, not just today's episode. The first trap is what I like to call the almost right number. Remember in Tom's phone call with Claire, there were two different numbers of days mentioned for the refund, 3 to 5 days in general, but 5 days specifically for his case? Listening tests love doing that, giving you two similar but slightly different numbers, hoping you'll grab the first one you hear and stop listening for a correction or a specific detail that comes right after it. The second trap is the expectation flip, like in Sophia's story, where she expected to get in trouble in that meeting, but instead got good news. Anytime you hear words like but, however, or instead, your brain should immediately perk up because a change of direction is coming. And that's usually exactly where the important answer is hiding. The third trap is simply too much information at once, like in the Whitfield family story, where 4 different people each wanted something different. In real life and in real tests, you often can't remember every detail perfectly on the first listen, and that's fine. That's normal, even for native speakers. The skill isn't perfect memory. The skill is knowing which details actually matter enough to hold on to. I want to give you a few practical tips, too. Things you can actually use starting today. Not just today while listening to me, but next time you're on a call in English, or watching a show without subtitles, or sitting in a work meeting where everyone's talking a little too fast for comfort. First tip: stop trying to translate everything into your own language while you listen. I know that feels safer, like a security blanket, but it actually slows you down so much that you miss the next sentence while you're still translating the previous one. Instead, try to picture what's happening, like a little movie in your head. Maya sitting at her kitchen table, Tom on the phone feeling frustrated, Freya's nephew roaring in his sleep. Pictures move faster than translation, and they help meaning stick so much better. Second tip: don't panic the moment you miss a word. One missed word is not the end of a sentence, and it's definitely not the end of a conversation. If you stop and mentally freeze on that one missed word, you'll miss the next 5 words while you're still stuck. Just let it go. Keep listening. And very often, the next few sentences give you enough context to understand what you missed anyway. Third tip, and this might be my favorite one: listen to the same audio more than once, on purpose, especially early on. The first time, just get the general idea. The second time, catch details. The third time, if you're brave, try listening while reading a transcript, just to see exactly which words you were mishearing or missing completely. That third step, especially, is like turning on the lights in a room you've been walking through in the dark. Suddenly, everything makes so much more sense. Here's something I want you to remember, something I truly believe. Improving your listening isn't about understanding 100% of every single word someone says. Even I don't understand 100% of what people say sometimes, and English is my first language. Real listening is about understanding enough, catching the important pieces, the who, the what, the when, the why, and letting the small stuff go. The more you practice with real, natural speech, like we did today, the more your brain naturally starts filling in those small gaps on its own, almost automatically, without you even noticing it happening. That's not magic, that's just repetition, and it's exactly why episodes like this one exist. Now, if you enjoyed testing yourself today, I want to ask you for a favor, a small one. Hit that subscribe button right now before you forget, because I'm planning to do these listening test episodes regularly, maybe every couple of weeks, moving through different levels, different topics, different types of conversations, so you always have something new to challenge yourself with. And down in the comments, I would genuinely love to know how you did today. Tell me your score. Tell me which story was the hardest for you. Tell me if the phone conversation confused you the way it confuses a lot of people. Or if the family vacation story was actually the tricky one instead. I read every single comment, and honestly, it helps me understand what to focus on for future episodes. So your feedback actually shapes what we do next here on this channel. If you know someone else who's learning English, a friend, a classmate, a coworker, send them this episode. Challenge them. See who gets a better score. A little friendly competition never hurt anyone, and honestly, learning together is so much more fun than learning alone in silence. Before I let you go, one last thought. Every single time you sit through an episode like this, every time you push yourself to listen to real, fast, natural English instead of the slow, simplified version, you're building something permanent in your brain. It doesn't feel like progress in the moment. It feels like confusion, like frustration, like missing details you wish you'd caught. But that feeling, that exact feeling of almost understanding, that's literally what learning feels like from the inside. So keep showing up, keep testing yourself, keep listening even when it's uncomfortable, because that discomfort is temporary, and the skill you're building is not. I'm Alex. This has been English in Fluency. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care of yourselves, keep practicing, and I promise, the next test is coming soon.